Hey all, Bengus here. I am fairly new to this whole thing, so just bear with. The production quality is not going to be exactly 5 star, but we're working on it. I've recently took to the online platforms to do some Marvel Snap content, as I took a bit of a tumble playing football, and I now cannot work my regular job for a month. So yeah, sucks to be me, right? Anyway, turns out it was pretty good timing because there's just been a brand new season of Marvel Snap, and I'm gonna talk through the new card and see what we can, what we can figure out. So here it is. It's Elsa Bloodstone. It's the text. If you play another card to fill a location, give it +3 power. The key word, I would say, is play, which we're going to talk about in a sec. I played around 60, 70 games with this morning. Obviously, at UK time, the card releases at 3 a.m. or something. So I wasn't up then, but about 8 a.m. I played a couple games on my phone, and then I carried on my PC about 9:30. I would say the first 15 or so games, there was some plays being made that I can only assume that the people making the plays thought that it was going to work, but it did not. So I'm just going to bring up some cards. These. So these create tokens, which do not count as played cards. So, example, someone played Elsa on 2, Brood on 3, assuming that because the lane's now filled, that third Broodling would be buffed, which is not the case. So I had a few, maybe they were just testing it, but they would do that on 2, Brood on 3, and then retreat because they thought, well, that didn't work. Same as Doom. If you saw this a few times, also 2 lanes with a space, and Elsa is down. Play Doom on 6, assuming they're going to get a big 8 power spike in both lanes. Again, I won a few 8 cubers because people were assuming they're going to add 8 power to lanes when they're only adding 5. So yeah, good for me, but also just be aware of that tokens created by other cards do not get buffed. And at Ultron, I only saw that once, but just thought I'd throw it in there that, yeah, the drones don't get buffed. Not that I haven't seen Ultron played for a while, but still, it's there. There are, however, one exception to a token creating card that is a very good interaction, Squirrel Girl, because obviously it fills 25% of all 3 locations for 1 power, and obviously Elsa wants locations to be filled pretty quick to get the most out of her, especially in like a Kazoo style deck where you might have trying to capitalize on Kitty Pryde by slamming into lanes to buff her multiple times. And one other exception, Mysterio, because the illusions are technically played cards. So if you're playing Mysterio on turn 6, for example, and there's a space in each lane, and I don't know why you do that because it's a bit of a waste, but still, 2. So one lane will gain 7 power, the other 2 will gain 3. So because their illusions do count as played cards. Right, so those are the not bad interactions. I'm not saying those decks aren't viable. Like, you could still play Brood with Elsa because you could play Brood in a separate lane to Elsa and then play something else in the Brood lane to buff that. It's perfectly fine. But the other 2, I would say, probably not worth the hopium of running those in Elsa decks. So they're just not very synergistic, is the correct word, I think. So we'll get rid of these. So where there are bad or confusing interactions, there are also going to be pretty good ones in these cards. As you can see, I am a big fan of a Dan Hiff variant. So yeah, he's my favourite artist in the game. And yeah, give more Dan Hiff variants, please. Why isn't there a Shang-Chi one? Second dinner. Come on. What's going on? That'd be sick. Anyway, so these same cards that are good with Angie, I guess, to a degree. Like, they have the same sort of interaction. So, like, obviously, anything that can move. I haven't seen Vision played with this, but it could work in a more power hungry deck where you're like putting 3 cards in a lane with Elsa Dome playing Vision on 5, and or maybe even like, you know, Elsa having a lane half, so having 2 cards in a lane on turn 4 playing Shuri, then Vision on 5, so you'd have a 19 power Vision, which you could probably even cut Typhoid Mary out of those decks for that, because that would be pretty busted a mobile 19 power. So anyway, I digress. So yeah, anything that can move, because you can, you know, slam Jeff into as the 4th card, and in the Elsa lane you got 6 power Jeff, move it out. You got a 5 power Nightcrawler, move it out. You got however many times you want to slam Kitty in there. I think they got it up to like 11 or 12 a few times from 0, so it can be done. And Hulkbuster, obviously that's interesting interaction. Same as Angie. If you put it into a lane with Angie as the 4th card, it will buff the Angie, and it will also get buffed by Elsa. So, you know, you're instantly adding 10 power to that lane, which is pretty insane. So yeah, those are the good cards. There are probably others that I've missed, just off the top of my head. Mysterio, obviously, covered that before. Yeah, I don't know. So let's have a look at an actual deck. This is the one that I have been enjoying this morning. Note the name, obviously, hilarious. But anyway, yeah, this deck has been around for a while in the metagame. Like, before this season, I was playing it last season. I'm struggling to see what I cut from it, but it might have been Hulkbuster actually. I don't know, but the only reason I'm still running Mobius is because, you know, there are still some people playing cost reduction, even though literally Mobius is in like 90% of decks or something stupid. So I just have it there just in case, and it's also fun to screw with locations. You know, you get Elysium real on turn 1, and then you got Mobius in hand, and you just slap it down on turn 2. It's pretty satisfying. Anyway, so yeah, so I'll talk through the deck. If you haven't played this deck before, like I said, it's consistent. It's very consistent. If you get the optimal cards. Almost like any deck, I guess. If you get the right cards in the right order, and you play them in the right place, you know, you win, essentially. Which is like the whole MO of the game, I guess. So let's just think about a dream hand on the opener would be like Kitty, Angie, Elsa, and another 2 cost. So you go like just Kitty on 1, Angie on 2, Elsa and Kitty on 3, and then depending on whether you've got Thor in hand, if I've got Thor in hand, I would play that on 4. If you've got Thor and Jane in hand, you definitely play the Thor on 4, Jane on 5. If you don't have Thor or Jane in hand, you'd go a 2 cost and Kitty in the same lane to fill a lane so that Kitty gets buffed, and then, you know, hopefully you draw Jane. If you don't have your 0 cost in your hand, I probably would have retreated already, but if you draw Jane there and you didn't have your 0 cost in your hand, sweet, play Jane on 5, draw, you get your 0 costs out, and then do some sort of, you're going to have to do some quick maths with your hit monkey, because it's potentially can go to, so let's think about it. So say you've got the 0 costs Mysterio and Kitty, Mysterio and Kitty in your hand, and hit monkey, so you can go Wasp, Yellow Jacket, Kitty, that's 3, Mysterio, that counts as 3 cards for hit monkey and Bishop, for those who didn't know that. So that's 5. I think 6 is the maximum, because you're not going to have space. So I think you can get it to 12 or 14 power before any location or Wong shenanigans. Not that you can have those, but so yeah, it is pretty busted. Let's see if I can get the overall stats up. Yeah, so this was it says 5 days of data, but obviously that's wrong, because it can't have had 6,000 games before today. Well, I mean, it has had 6,000 games today, but this isn't 5 days of data. This is just, it can only be, as of right now, 13 hours of data. So it's I think it's one of the top, got the biggest what's the word? The biggest sample size of all the Elsa decks at the moment. There's also a bounce one, which is I would say personally not as consistent as this, but I would definitely give this a go. This is my first full landscape YouTube video that I'm going to be uploading, so I would really appreciate if you could hit any of the buttons, turn them grey, that would be awesome. And check out my other platforms. I got TikTok and I got a Facebook page, and I stream on Twitch. All should be linked in my bio, I think. But if you could check those out, I'd really appreciate it. And I'll see you next time in a bit.